is episode 3 of Basement Banter. I'm here with Jarod Aspenson from the Sheriff's Office here in Bartholomew County. He is one of my fellow co-workers and has had a pretty lengthy career throughout at his young age. Jarod, you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me on. Excited to be here. But after high school, I went straight into the Marine Corps. Went in under an infantry contract. It was for 4 years. While I was in training, they kind of dangled a carrot in front of me that sounded good at the time. I ended up extending for a 5th year and went into security forces under something called presidential support. And it was just basically a security gig. Not very fun, but kind of got me some good training and some extra things that I wouldn't have gotten to do in the infantry. And then in my last 2 years, I got to leave the D.C. area and head over to Hawaii, 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines, and I did one deployment to Garmshire, Afghanistan. Got done with that, came home, went to Ivy Tech for just a couple years in Bloomington, and then ended up getting into corrections there, trying to get my foot in the door in law enforcement. And so I worked for the corrections center there for a while and put in for a couple different places, and I ended up getting hired by the Bartholomew County Sheriff's Office, and so I've been here for about 4.5 years now.
So, back to the Marines, when you did the presidential security detail, were you working was it like White House type stuff, or was it more like intelligence type thing, or can you explain that?
Yeah, I was basically just a goon. I wasn't one of the smart guys. I wasn't, they pulled me out of the infantry for it. I was just security forces. So basically, whatever facilities they wanted me to guard, that's what we did. That's what the security element did. We just, like I said, goons. Stood around with guns, make sure nothing bad's happening, check everything out, make sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and in general, just kind of stand around and look scary. I got to do a little bit of travel with that and went to went to Sharm el Sheikh, Egypt, and cool. Got to go to Prague, and those are two places that most Marines wouldn't get to go. So it was something that was unique, and I got to travel, not for a very long time, but I got to travel to some places that a lot of Marines now you're going to Afghanistan, and while a lot of people have good experiences with that and bad, it was nice to be able to go other places. I also went to Pittsburgh, I believe it was in 2010 for the G20 summit with all the college kids trying to riot and everything. Probably don't even know what they're rioting about.
Oh yeah, I bet that was interesting.
Tear gas in the air was pretty fun.
So I'm assuming during that time it was under the Obama administration?
Yeah, so I was actually in D.C. Waiting for my clearance to go through when Obama got elected. So I believe I was standing post at the Washington Naval Yard when we heard the city kind of erupted when. Nice. When he won, and it was basically a giant party in D.C. for quite a while.
Did you get to meet Obama or Michelle or any of them? Or
I did meet Obama. At the very end of presidential support detail, a lot of times you get to have kind of a meet and greet. Wait in a line at the White House and show up in your blues and walk up and shakes your hand and ask you just a few questions. How you doing? What generic stuff that the Obamanator would ask you. And he was excited to hear I was going to Hawaii and stuff like that. So just shook his hand, said hi, small talk, and then on to the next one. He just goes down the line shaking people's hands.
Interesting. And then going from there, you went into, you said you went to school, or did you go into corrections first?
No, I went to school first. Originally, I thought maybe I'd like to be a paramedic. And I quickly changed course after about a year. And then I geared my education more towards law enforcement. And then it turned out I didn't even really need it. I didn't need to finish it. I ended up getting into corrections, and I put school aside and just focused on work. And then I put in for a few different places, and Bartholomew County was the one that moved quickest and hired me. And I would like to go back to school, but at this point, it just doesn't seem needed. I'm pretty happy where I'm at, and if I do go back, it'll just be for my own personal, say I got a degree.
Right.
But I don't really need one for what I want to do.
Man, thinking back when I worked corrections, I think it was Monroe County, right, where you worked?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that, being all the drunk college kids, but...
It can get a little wild.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back, in 03, so I was there 03 to 07 in corrections, and the amount of drunks we got in, I cannot even imagine, a college town. Like
during the Little 500, when they're all down there partying. I mean, the college kids, they'll find any reason to party, but the Little Five's the big one. And our drunk tank was standing room only. I mean, it was not VIP treatment. And we have there's a big window that they watch you walk by. You're trying to do your paperwork. They're pounding on the window trying to get your attention, and you're telling them, look, you got 20 people ahead of you. I'll get you out when I can. Working as hard as you can on paperwork, classification, all that stuff. But it got pretty wild there in the jail.
Yeah, I would definitely say I probably got battered or in more fights working in the jail in 4 years than I have working patrol or detectives in 12. Like it just seemed like every Friday night you were getting swung at or something. It was just insane.
I was pretty lucky. I broke up a lot of fights. I prevented some fights where people looked like they wanted to fight me. On one occasion, I had somebody really trying to fight me. I was stepping back, trying to talk to him. Looking back, I mean, it was pretty close to us, having to fight. But trying to gain distance and wait for help to arrive, because as fun as it can be to fight, you don't want anybody getting hurt. I don't want getting put out of commission. I don't want to hurt an inmate. Those people, a lot of them aren't bad people. They're just there. They made a choice and they're there. They got to spend time there. And honestly, the amount of anger and just discontent from inmates that you picture being there. I think working in the jail, if there's one thing it really taught me, besides how to talk to people, it was looking at it from their side of things. And thinking, if my mental well-being goes down in an 8 to 12 hour shift, imagine sitting in here constantly watching your back, wondering if somebody's trying to trick you or if you're going to get attacked. I mean, it was eye-opening, and I can honestly say I have a lot of respect for corrections officers that do the job and do it well, because I know that after, I think I did it for 9 or 10 months, I had a shelf life. If I hadn't have been hired on a department, I have no problem admitting that while I did a good job there, it was about to be up. I was I'd have been out of there no matter what. Within a couple months from there, I was looking at other options. But there are corrections officers that do it for 20, 30 years, and they continue to do a good job. And for some reason, they're able to keep a positive mindset. And that's impressive to me. It's very impressive.
Tom Finke did it for 30 plus years. And that man is a legend. Like, I know he's got a training room downstairs dedicated to him, but I always joked with him when I would go in there. I'd say, Tom, as long as you've been here, they ought to dedicate a whole wing of this place to you. And I can always remember, anytime there was a problem upstairs, he'd walk up there by himself, nobody else. He would walk in there, and he'd always have his jaw cocked out, and he'd always point that finger, and he'd always be like blood red, where he'd be so ticked off. And it's like they knew. It was like a little kid and their grandpa getting up out of the chair, like that look, and they would all just like boom, whatever he said they did. It was absolutely hilarious. But yeah, like when I worked back there, I was very lucky in regards to like going in the blocks. I never had an issue. Like I never, had anybody swing at me, anything like that I can recall. But intake, Friday, Saturday night, intoxicated or high, they just, and the next day they had 9 times out of 10 they didn't even remember what they had done. They were just so
yeah. Now you get a lot of that. I've had it in this job too, but definitely I worked processing. It was kind of like intake. I did. It kind of seems like the same job that our intake guys would do here, but that was what I enjoyed. I didn't really enjoy walking the blocks, although I worked at night. They usually weren't out. But the times I worked during the day, and they did, I never had a problem in the block either. If you were respectful, talk to people. I mean, I never got attacked. I saw it happen. But it's a different experience. You've got to really, like I said, learn how to talk to people. It shows you. Because, in a jail, working as a corrections officer, you are outnumbered. Yeah. You are in a hostile environment that if they decide it's over, I mean, you're in bad shape.
You're exactly right.
I have never been, and I know some people are different. I've talked to other corrections officers that absolutely loved working that never felt that way. But my scariest times on the road working as a deputy, I never I don't think are comparable to the times that I even got a little nervous in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
When I got nervous about things I saw in the jail, you feel very small, or at least I did.
Yeah.
Now, when I'm on the road, I can be outnumbered. I've been outnumbered. I've been dealing with people, and I feel in charge. I know, like, I just don't have that same feeling. It's not the same environment. I can talk to people. I can swing things my way. Mm-hmm. I also do have more training now than I did, and that, I took up jiu-jitsu as something that makes me more confident as far as dealing with somebody on the ground. But in the jail, it's different. You got to watch yourself, because it's, like I said, it can be a very bad, negative environment. Yeah. You don't know what is building up in an inmate's mind all night.
Yeah.
The night before, maybe they got in a fight, maybe they got something stolen, maybe, who knows, maybe something happened outside the jail that's affecting their
bad
life.
Phone call, kid sick,
and you may show up, you say the wrong thing, and you have no idea when somebody's going to snap.
Yeah. I'll never forget, I won't mention the guy's name direct, but there was a guy who's incarcerated in there, and he was facing some pretty serious charges, but he never was really a problem. He was always pretty respectful, and he joked around, with us and stuff, but, he listened. And big guy, definitely not somebody I definitely want to go nose to nose with. And I remember getting a call in, and he had lost a child.
Oh, my God.
And the child was born while he was incarcerated. So he never really got to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And... I don't recall the exact cause of death. I believe it was a SIDS. But anyways, I had to go make the notification. And when I brought him down, I sat down just like what we are right here. And, I let him the news. And I see, I was like, man, he is going to snap. And I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to control him. I don't think there was enough people working that day, honestly, that had been able to control him. Because back then... you had mace and handcuffs.
Yeah.
There was no taser, there was no batons, there was nothing, And lucky enough, he tensed up, he got mad, and, he cussed a little bit, and then he broke down, just like a normal human being. And he actually apologized for tensing up on me like that. And I was like, no, dude, no big deal. I probably would have reacted the same way, type thing. And, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of respect there for corrections. And
like I said, can you imagine being not just locked up in there with nothing going on? You have your freedom taken away. Even if things are going well on the outside, you're still locked up. Mm-hmm. And you imagine being helpless, not being able to be with, your significant other who has that kid, and having to listen, and then all of a sudden getting news like that broken, and you're still locked up. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah. And with his charges, he wasn't getting released for, a funeral. You're at the time, I think he was looking at a B felony, robbery.
Very rarely, and I don't really know how the prisons work or anything like that, but as far as furlough or whatever they call it, what has to happen for you to get out even temporarily? It's crazy. And most of the time, inmates, they just have to deal, and they're by themselves. They're by themselves in there with their thoughts. Mm-hmm. It's not like some corrections officers might stop and talk to them a little bit. They might have a couple friends they met, but you don't have family with you. No support, just there with your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. And, I did it for 4 years, and I tell you what, there was a few times where I was like, man, I'm done. Mm-hmm. But honestly, the biggest thing is any job wears on you. Mm-hmm. But corrections, being in that environment, like just nonstop, 5-6 days a week, 12-hour days some days, it was crazy. And like you said, them being cooped up like that, just think, like, I don't know if you have any brothers or sisters, but like me and my brother Jonathan, growing up together, we were about 4 years apart, and during the summer we're home together all the time. Just being home together all the time, tensions were right. We beat the hell out of each other.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And we loved each other. I couldn't imagine being hemmed up, with guys that you don't like even, and it's just, yeah.
Like I said, I had a shelf life. I have a lot of respect for the people who can do it. But when I was hitting that 9-10 month mark, and I was looking at, there were a couple different departments that were looking good, and I was moving along in the process, I told my wife, I was like, look, when this is over, one way or another, whether I get hired by a police department or not, I'm done here. I'm not doing this. I'll go back to school. It's just, it wasn't for me. Like I said, I did a good job while I was there, but I don't think I could have done the job justice if I'd have stayed much longer. I think it was just not my kind of environment. It wears on you, and it wears on some more than others. But like I said, that's why when I see somebody who has put 10, 20, 30 years and they're still, have their head on their shoulders and they're doing well, and they it's a very respectable thing to be able to keep yourself together and do that job.
Yeah, I want to say that I read the statistics is the average on corrections is, for an officer is like a year.
Oh, that's absolutely. I didn't even make it a year.
And so if you get a good year out of an officer, you're doing good as a department.
Yeah, I think a year would have been about my max. It was 9 or 10 months, and I got hired, and I was so thankful, not just to get the job I wanted, but to get out of there. And I think if I hadn't, I think maybe 2-3 months, it'd have been out of there. So yeah, I'd have fallen right in on that statistic.
Yeah. So going in, got a few months in school, and then you hired on the sheriff's department. Is that right? Yeah,
I went to school for a total of about a year and a half. I think I was completely done going to class by the time I got hired. I worked for Pepsi for a little while just for some extra money, part-time, drove a forklift around. But then I got hired on by the sheriff's department. I think it was 2016, mid-2016.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't have academy training or anything like that, so me and another guy got hired on. You guys were hiring too. And
was it you and Lanning that hired at the same time?
Me and Lanning. And Lanning was, he was already trained, so he was able to go right into it. I got to go to the academy, and again, I'm very thankful the amount of money they spend to put you through the academy. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a lot, and if they can possibly hire somebody who's already trained, that's generally, something they're going to want to look to do. But so I'm very appreciative that they poured so much money into me to get this job. It's a great job for somebody. I mean, obviously, it looks good to have a degree, military experience, all that, but I feel very fortunate. I'm not one of those officers that feels like I don't get enough. I feel like for what I do, especially for how fun it is, I mean, I really like this job. I don't know what else I would want to do. And even on a bad day, it's better than the other jobs I had. And, I'm just thankful that I get to be here and do this.
Yeah, I remember being up at the academy, and there was initially 3 to every room. It was packed, and then amazingly, one of my roommates, the second day in, was removed from class, and when we got back up to our room, all the stuff was gone, so he got booted.
A little bit of extra room.
Yeah, so we were like one of the only rooms that only had 2, and my roommate Jake. He was active military. He was Air Force, I believe, security something. It was the same thing that Mike Brown was in.
Air Force security forces?
Yeah.
Probably out there guarding UFOs and stuff then?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I don't know. I might need to hit him on Facebook to see if he went down to Area 51
yeah.
and we're in a rig.
Yeah, definitely. I need to talk to some Air Force security force guys, because I was hoping to see UFOs when I got my clearance, but no, none of that. Just doorways.
But when we were at the academy, he definitely had the jump, because like I'm pretty meticulous, like clean wise, and my stuff's got to be laid out a certain way, and if anything's moved, I can tell. But I didn't know how to do it the military way, and that's what they wanted you to do at the academy, or your room was tossed. So it was kind of like Jake took care of the bed, and the cornered off sheets and all that crap, and I took care of the cleaning.
Yeah.
So we split that up, and so it kind of worked out well for us. And the marching thing, dude, I can't march.
See, I was pretty fortunate coming into the academy, because police academies are more, I guess, a paramilitary environment. They aren't, but I've been through Marine Corps boot camp, and basically what they wanted you to do with your bed, your room, all that stuff, it was very similar to how the Marine Corps, field day is what they call when you clean. And the stuff that happens to you if you leave, I don't know, if there's soap scum somewhere, it's just ridiculous. I've seen guys get their beds tossed off the 3rd story of whatever barracks, and it goes laying in the courtyard, and they got to run down there, grab that, bring it back up, attempt to make it, hope it's right that time. So by the time I got in, and my roommate at the academy was a DNR guy, and if you know anything about the DNR guys, they are locked on whatever DNR puts their guys through. It's that 4-week core values training, I think it's called. That is a military environment. So my DNR guy, he was possibly neater than me. I mean, he was shining his boots up perfect to a mere finish, and our room never got tossed. And they were looking for reasons to toss our room based on my dad was one of the instructors, so they were looking for reasons. But,
yeah, they called up there and let them know I was coming because I don't know, they just thought it'd be funny. Mm-hmm. It wasn't funny, but
cause you get some special treatment.
Absolutely. Yeah. For the first 2 weeks, I was like, I couldn't do anything right. But there's always that one guy that's just completely.
There's usually a few, but there is always one.
Always one that's like, even if they want to mess with you, they have to go to this guy because he's just a complete klutz, And our class had that one guy, and he was excellent. Like book wise, but like I couldn't march, but he was even worse than me when it came to it. So like I had that 2 weeks, and then it was like nothing else. The rest of the time was said to me. This guy's like, and his grades were definitely better than mine. But yeah, the poor feller, he was just uncoordinated.
Yeah, it's amazing when people get taught to march for the first time. Now, marching is basically just walking with authority. You just stomp your feet a little louder. You make sure you swing your arm, but it's a somewhat natural movement. You do it kind of the same way you walk, except that when somebody's watching you and they're teaching you, for some reason, all of a sudden you forget how to walk. And you just, it's the goofiest looking thing when people try and march for the first time. Everyone gets tore. I was lucky I already had that in the Marine Corps, but watching people unlearn how to walk and suddenly look like toddlers because instructors are watching them, that's pretty entertaining. And like you said, there's always one. Usually there's more than that. And that's the good thing about academies is you just got to be better than that one guy, and you're going to be fine.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Somebody else is going to get yelled at. Yeah.
Yeah. So, when you were up at the academy, who was your DI? Was your dad your DI, or did you have somebody else?
Well, we didn't have one DI just per squad or anything like that. He was... he's been a DI up there for quite a while now. Me and him talked either the night before or 2 nights before I went up there, and I said, "Hey, do you think it's best if we don't interact before or during the academy?" So I didn't hang out with my dad during the academy. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't have any special insight. He actually did not target me. The other ones did.
Kipper.
The other instructors I don't remember if somebody's beat my record since then, but you know how when you go to the firing range, you're supposed to have your loose rounds with you and stuff, and they tell you you're going to have burpees and I think it's like 10 burpees per round. Man, I went to help somebody else out count their target. I left my loose rounds on top of this box. And I'm one of the instructor's sons, so they're looking for reasons. And I've done pretty good up to this point. It's probably 5-6 weeks in. And I go out there to the line and I start shooting. And then I realize I left my loose rounds. I had something like 650 burpees that I had to do. Obviously, they weren't going to sit there and watch me. So I had a squad leader when we were up there playing ping pong on our free time. Every time somebody would score on me, which is a lot, I'd do 10 burpees. I had them knocked out in about 3 or 4 days. But yeah, I might have the record for the amount of burpees acquired through forgetting rounds.
Well, I won't narc him out or nothing, but me and Captain Slate, he may have passed 2 of the instructors on the way home one Friday. And when we came back Monday, needless to say, push-ups were not an issue for us come exit exam because we had to do 500 of them.
Oh.
And we didn't have to do them straight, obviously, but we had to have them done by a certain time. We could go to any staff member or whatever, and they count them out, and then they would mark down the number or whatever. But yeah, and the thing of it was we weren't going fast, really. I mean, we were so where were we at? 31 at maybe like 950 North, just passing the Edinburgh sign. And we go by and we look over, and it was Lieutenant Brown and Kipper. Lieutenant Kipper. So I was like, oh my God, Monday's going to be bad.
Yeah. I did get punished right off the bat for something I didn't do, which I did on purpose, but somebody got in trouble. Basically, they held up something at the beginning of the very first day. They held up one of the, I think it was an SFST book, held it up and said, "Who lost it?" Nobody's claiming it. And I was like, this always happens. This happened in the Marine Corps. It happened in School of Infantry. There's always something like that happens, and usually the person won't fess up to it. So I thought, well, they all know because they announced it. Everyone here knows that I'm the son of one of the instructors. So I decided to build some street cred, and I said that it was mine. I stood up and said it was mine. I lost it. My own dad walks up to me and hands it to me and goes, "Put your name on the board." So I did have burpees right off the bat, but that was at least for a good reason. And I think most everybody knew I did that on purpose. So,
did they still do gig cards or whatever when you were up there, or no?
I heard about it. I know we had some people. We had at least one person get like a red sticker for like basically what do you call that? It's basically you're put on notice. But I think I remember gig cards, but I don't know of anybody who really got hit with it.
I never got gigs, but there was a few guys that did, and it was over like, how they wake you up in the middle of the night sometimes and like, oh, you're going to go run, and then they give you like 20 minutes to get clean and get your, tans on and get back down there. Well, there's some guys that like obviously can grow a beard overnight.
Yeah.
So there was a few of those guys that just were trying to get down there before the time was up, and they had facial hair or too much facial hair according to whoever the DI was, and they would get gigged and stuff, or maybe your boots weren't up to par or whatever. I've seen that. I just didn't know if they still did that or not.
Yeah, I think they do, but for us, most of the punishment, the small level punishment, was doled out by putting your name on the board, and then before every meal, you were doing burpees. You can go to lunch sweaty and all that, but somebody did get some extra punishment for basically quitting in the middle of a PT session.
Wow.
Just actively quit, actually like declared it and said, "I can't." So obviously that's a no-no amongst the instructors, and that person was given, it was like a red sticker on their tag, like that's like final notice. You do something like that again, you're out of here, which makes sense if you're doing, my personal opinion, I think law enforcement training should be much more brutal as far as at least maybe the first couple weeks.
Oh, yeah,
because the level of stuff that you're going to hear, people are going to throw everything in the book at you because they hate us.
Yeah.
They hate us, and sometimes they're just out of their minds on whatever, alcohol, drugs. So if you can't handle, that kind of stuff, then you really shouldn't be doing it.
I think going back to the corrections, I think the corrections thing helped me a lot. Because like you said, dealing with people screaming, yelling, it's like if I can be yelled at by some, pedophile or somebody that, I have no respect for, and not react and not, remain professional, and not get upset and everything. Going up there and getting yelled at by a guy that's done a job that I want to do for 35 years, that doesn't bother me.
No.
You know what I mean? When somebody I respect yells at me, obviously I'm not going to react if I didn't react to this, pedophile or whatever. And so I think that kind of helped me a bit on the correction side going into it.
Yeah, you got to really learn to bite your tongue and put your pride away temporarily, because people are going to say things to you, and this isn't the Green Mile. It's a different time.
Yeah.
You don't get to just attack inmates. You aren't.
Oh, yeah.
The punishment that has to be doled out, you've got write-ups, you've got, maybe if they're completely out of control, we had a restraint chair. Even that, it was like, 30 minutes, and then you've got to do these other things and get them out of it. Yeah. So, but it's not, like what you see in the movies. There's no, getting in somebody's face and laying them out or whatever. And honestly, because this isn't the movies, if you do that, you might do it to the wrong person anyway. And
well, and you're going to end up fired or charged.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
both. Corrections officers, like I said earlier, you're talking about a lot of buildup on the inmates and your mindset. And you have one outburst, the wrong outburst. You say the wrong thing, and you're done, and you should be. It's not the kind of environment you can lose control in.
Yep.
And same for law enforcement. we're supposed to be trusted with a lot, and dealing with people having terrible days and everything. I mean, you got to check yourself. You got to be careful.
Yep.
Not to mention nowadays, everything you might as well assume is being recorded.
Oh,
you don't want that. You don't want that call coming in and being like, "Hey, have you heard this recording of yourself?"
Yeah.
Yeah. No thanks.
So now you've been on for what?
4.5 years.
4.5 years, and we had the joint SWAT. What? 2 years ago it started.
Probably 3.
3 years ago.
I had about a year on, I think, when I interviewed for it.
So, first in county history, was it you, Dugan, Dane, and...
Dane didn't put in for it that time.
Oh, he didn't put in
No,
for
it was me, Dugan, and Lanning.
Lanning, okay. So you guys were the first 3.
Mm-hmm.
And how was that? I mean, I know you guys train quite a bit, like what, once every couple weeks or something like that? Or
once again, with how, I guess, lucky I got with everything, when I got on the sheriff's department, and I knew I was going to put my time, if I wasn't going to stay here, I was going to be here and put my time in for a while. And I had to just accept that, we didn't have a SWAT team. I thought, that was off the table. I wouldn't get a chance at doing that. Then they started talking about maybe putting one together, which I didn't really think would happen. And then all of a sudden, hey, we're doing a joint SWAT team with Columbus, and we're going to go ahead and combine everything and put in for it. So I asked very politely, because I didn't have a year on yet. It's like, hey, I think I have a pretty decent skill set to at least have a solid base and be trained by the team. So I went out for their selection, and us 3 made it. And since then, it's been a lot of fun. It's a part-time team, and this is a fairly safe community. So we aren't, this isn't LAPD SWAT, any of that crazy stuff.
Right.
But it is good training. We get to do a lot of good training every couple weeks, and the guys are good. And when we do get call-outs, it can be a lot of fun. I mean, obviously you got to be careful. There's a reason it's a SWAT team, but it is. I've learned a lot, and the amount of people, whether they were military or not, the amount of people bringing different skill sets in and getting to see what people know and learn from them is excellent. So I've been doing that. I want to say probably around 3 years. Maybe 3.5, and it's been awesome. I've gotten a lot of good opportunities. I've gotten a little bit of extra training just for being on the team that has, like I said, it's been a lot of fun, and it's not an opportunity I thought I would get. So when it happened and I got put on it, I was like, well, once again, count your blessings, because I did not think a SWAT team was in the cards for any of us. So I'm glad that we have that chance to do that. It's cool to be a part of that.
And it's good that we get to work together with, CPD and, other departments. I mean, I've worked a lot with, ISP, I've worked with CPD, I've worked with, FBI, DA.
Feds every once in a while
ATF.
bring people down, and you get, all of a sudden you find yourself a part of something that you didn't even know was going on.
Yeah, or, occasionally I'll get calls from them, say, hey, such and such, because I know, I'm from here, and I know everybody, and I'm like, yeah, no, or, I'll do some checking for you, whatever, which is good. It's always good to have that connection, and, going into it, I just thought, hey, I work with my guys in Brown, and we'll do our patrolling, and...
There's nothing wrong with that, but I think even, I was talking to somebody about this, at least within the last week or so, things have changed. I think the mindset's changed even since I've been on. There was kind of an era of it was like a team mentality, which, like I said, there's nothing wrong with us sticking with our guys and working with them a lot. But the fact is, we all work in the same area, and the city falls within the county jurisdiction. And when I first started, without naming names, there were times where I would show up. I'm a new guy, and I'd show up to help, and might get shooed off by. Usually it would be an older city officer maybe, but they would kind of shoot you off, or hey, thanks, but I'm good here.
Yeah.
Now I can't remember the last time that's happened. I feel like, and not just me, our training. We train a lot. We do our active shooter trainings and everything, and we mix with CPD a lot, and
it makes total sense, because if it's something huge, catastrophic, something like you said, active shoot or something like, you're going to get agencies from everywhere.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
everybody wants to help.
Yeah, because I mean that type of ordeal, it's literally going to be chaos, and you're going to need every bit of help you can get, and you need to train that way.
Because of that, I mean, it helped too with me being on the SWAT team and meeting some of those city guys. But like I said, I think it's kind of spread throughout the entirety of the departments. Everybody seems to not mind working together. I've had city generally doesn't want to leave the city. They kind of, I think they're probably gonna at least need to let somebody know if they're gonna be leaving. But I mean, I can think of one time I was about to go home. I was excited to go home. I was talking to a city guy north of town, just technically, right in their jurisdiction, and I got a nasty crash. All of a sudden, up north, way out of city's area. And I just broke off conversation with him and went over there because, I mean, you're talking, it was like a vehicle rollover fire into a telephone pole. It sounded like the kind of thing where you're worried about finding somebody dead.
Yeah.
And I get in my vehicle, I just take off, and I scan, I can hear their traffic too. And I hear that guy as I'm leaving notify his supervisors like, hey, his backup is 10, 15 minutes out. I can't remember. I mean, everybody else was on the other side of the county.
Oh, yeah.
City guy rolls out with me, following me close because they don't come out to the county very often, but following me close, got out there, and he halved the work. I mean, obviously it's my report and everything, but he came out there and at least cut my work in half. And so, I mean, and that happens a pretty decent amount. I mean, we all work very well together, I think, and I think it's gotten better over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. I remember, like, when I first started, I was on third shift, we literally had 3 people. It'd be... At one point, it was me, Slate, and Chris Weisner was our sergeant on our weekend. And, on the weekends, obviously, that's where your majority of your drunks are. So it's like if one of you got a DUI, you got to have 2 people on it because you got to have one, obviously, then with the individual, and then you got to have somebody stand by with the vehicle. And so you'd have one guy, out there wandering, around the whole county. So.
And when you're with that one guy, you're just sitting there thinking, like, no matter what happens, it's me. I've got to take care of whatever it is.
And we were lucky, Macaulay was working the road back then with ISP, and so he was out and about quite a bit on third shift, so you'd have him, and then obviously, the city guys would come out and back you up if you needed it, but depending on where you're at, it might be 20, 25 minutes before they're there. If you're down there in Waymansville, and
yeah.
They're up at the 78-mile marker with the DUI.
We generally, it seems like we do a good job for only having a skeleton crew basically all the time. But it seems like we all do a pretty good job of trying to stay free, get things, taken care of as quick as possible. But, if you do it, I have a pretty short career compared to a lot of guys on the department. I'm only 4.5 years in, but multiple times a month, you are going to be the one guy that's free, and you're staying free, and then something horrible happens. And I mean, sometimes you can get help from an outside ISP. They're real good about showing up and helping us. I've had DNR come out of nowhere. Oh, yeah. I don't even know what they're doing. They just show up.
Jay Noble's a ninja.
Yeah, he'll just
he'll just come walking out of the woods in random traffic stops, and I'm like, thank God he's here. I don't know where he came from.
Oh yeah, I've had a couple specific troopers that I can think of that I've been going to like a gnarly call, just something that sounds like absolute chaos, and I'm looking, my backup's probably 10, 15 minutes away, or maybe it's not coming because they're tied up, and I show up there and here comes a trooper squealing in, getting out just to help me out. And it's a good feeling to know that even if you forget about them, there are other agencies that will go out of their way to help you. And the troopers, I think, we seem to have them in our area quite a bit, and they have no problem coming out and helping us.
Yeah, I always remember Macaulay, Bryce Harris, Powell, Matt Hawley.
Powell.
Which I think Powell's not our area anymore. I think he switched areas. Towards the end, Corey Clark was there. He was there probably for a couple years before I went into investigations and stuff. But it was nice having him. But I've talked to him, and you know, guys that work different areas, and they tell us like how well we handle like our call volume compared, you know, which, you know, some departments only have one or two guys working. So,
oh yeah, there's plenty out there that are. I mean, one guy. I don't know how many Brown County has, but I imagine they're on a skeleton crew all the time too.
But yeah, but they got, I think, like Princess Lakes, like where Jimmy Green took over. I don't know how far he can go. I'm sure if something happens, he can break free from there. And then Nashville, I think they're considered a metropolitan police department technically, so they can go out in the county as well and help. So that's nice for them, I guess.
Yeah.
So outside of the whole work talk, music wise and stuff, any new albums, any good albums you've listened to, or even your favorite album, I guess?
Well, I'm not very good at keeping up with latest music, and as my wife says, and I guess I agree with her, I have pretty terrible taste in music, or at least it's very dated. I'm one of those guys that, like, I get excited about a band that I just started listening to, and they were cool 20 years ago, and then my wife will inform me that, like, yeah, you probably don't want people knowing that you're listening to that, but or that you just discovered that. Like, if just for example, like back in the day, I loved Korn when I finally started. But by the time I liked Korn, I was in the Marine Corps. They'd passed, like their time was over.
New
but
metal.
As far as band, new metal. As far as bands that I'm going to go out of my way to listen to, I will say, I really like Disturbed a lot, and anytime they bring something out, I know it's going to be good. Slipknot has never disappointed me. I like a lot of metal. I mean, I like a lot of different types of music. It just depends on what I'm doing. For example, if I'm writing reports somewhere, for some reason I like 30s and 40s music, like old, like sounds like it's on one of those old, like whatever you call them,
records.
Yeah, like a record or. But for the most part, I listen to rock, metal, a little bit of rap in there, depending on how I'm feeling. But as far as bands that have never steered me wrong, I feel like Slipknot's probably up there, and I finally got to see them live too. My wife got me tickets for them right when I got out of the Marine Corps, and that was an excellent show. And but yeah, I have a pretty wide range when it comes to just what I like listening to. But I'm usually pretty outdated on that stuff.
That's kind of the way I am. I mean, you can see you walk down. I don't know if you paid attention, but like when you first come down the stairs into my basement, like I've kind of got like my musical influence, like thing. You know, and I've got everything from Tupac and Snoop Dogg on a poster to Johnny Cash to Metallica, to Kid Rock. You know, like all of it. I mean, I'm so wide open. You know, bipolar rock and roller, I guess you should say. That's what Kid Rock always says, because people are like, well, how can you sing country music and then be a rapper? And he's like, well, I'm bipolar rock and roller.
Watch this.
He like his concerts are awesome because he'll go through like almost like a timeline of his career, and he'll like do a rap song, and then he'll go into like a metal song, and then he'll go into like a country song, and then he'll go back into metal, then he'll go back into rap, back into country, and he'll like do it in different time frames, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, I probably listen to more country, and not like modern country, because that's more or less NSYNC pop music.
Yeah, and I've thought that too. There's no way you'd ever catch me, well, if I was listening to the radio and not my own online radio. You wouldn't catch me going to a country station here in Columbus, because I know what kind of stuff they play. Now, if you're talking some older, if you consider Johnny Cash that, or Steve Earle. I love Steve Earle, the Highwaymen. That stuff I'm all about.
Waylon,
my dad got me into all that stuff, and I'm a big fan of some of the older sounding country, but yeah, pretty much anything you're going to see on TV nowadays, like some music video playing from something modern, I don't want any part of that. I'll cut my arm off to get away from modern country music.
Yeah. Chris Stapleton and Jamie Johnson are probably the only two I've really heard on the radio that's played often. And Jamie Johnson really ain't played often anymore. That's, I feel, is legitimate country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned your parents, that was the same way with me. Like growing up, my parents, they listened to a lot of country, like Randy Travis, Alan Jackson, Hank Williams Jr., that sort of thing. And it's kind of carried on to me. Like when I was young, it was rap music, from like Tupac to ICP to even towards the end, it was Kanye West before he went all, crazy like political and called George Bush racist and then all that. Before that, when he had the College Dropout album. But yeah, like I'm wide open when it comes to it. Like,
I don't think Kanye West is one of those guys that I know I've heard probably all his famous songs at some point and just never locked into it or knew I was listening to him. But I remember by the time I started paying attention to him, it was when he was demanding attention, when he started losing his mind. And
that's when I stopped.
Yeah.
Like with the Taylor Swift debacle and then like the whole, all that, that I was like, I can't deal with him anymore.
Yeah, but I've been told by at least a couple people that they listen to Kanye West and they love his music, and I guess it was pretty good. But I couldn't name one off the top of my head, but I guess he's considered pretty good.
His last album, he said in an interview he's completely done with secular music, so he's only doing Christian music now. So his last album that he put out, which was like 3 weeks ago, is a gospel album actually.
Kanye West.
Yes.
Is just doing Christian music.
Yes,
I did not know that.
Completely changed, and there's actually about an hour and 50-minute long documentary that he did, talking about what happened and things. But yeah, and then I seen recently, I think I might even shared it. He went in, he basically did the rec program by himself, and like some Houston jail or something. And he spoke with the officers, and then he spoke, obviously went into like a concert for the inmates. I guess maybe modern day Johnny Cash.
Huh.
And he went to San Quentin type thing, which I thought was cool. 5 years ago, he wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
He was charging $500 a ticket and selling $1,000 T-shirts.
I mean, he may be out there, but I guess that's a good thing to do. I mean, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. And he's not running around screaming crazy stuff. He's not jumping up on award show stages now. I mean, only time will tell, but man, it looks like he's taking a step in the right direction.
Yeah, most of the news I'd ever heard about him had been pretty negative, but no, that's the first I've heard of that stuff. That's pretty cool that he's kind of going in that direction.
He bought a 4,000 acre farm in like Wyoming or something, just literally out in the middle of nowhere. So he's like not around anybody.
Do you think he's the only rapper that lives in Wyoming?
You know what? You probably. I mean, Corey Taylor from Slipknot rapped.
Technically it's new metal. Spit
but
it
that
out
was Iowa, not Wyoming. So.
Yeah,
but
Iowa.
Close.
Close. Yeah. Huh.
Which Corey Taylor is pretty. I mean, have you seen any of his acoustic stuff?
Oh yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Oh yeah. Now, one of my favorite songs he did for Slipknot was Snuff.
Yes.
And it's just the slowest song. Mm-hmm. Really good.
And Stone Sour.
Stone Sour is just a reserved Slipknot.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not even that reserved. That song 30-31-50, that is heavy. I love that band.
Psychosocial. I mean,
Psychosocial
was hard.
I feel like when that was Slipknot. That was 2 albums ago. That was All Hope Is Gone or All Hope Is Lost. That came out when I was in DC, and I remember seeing the music video to that with all the fire and the Darkness Head banging the mask. It was just, I really felt like that was the most perfect metal song I'd ever heard. And then the video was perfect too. Like I've heard it a lot, but I don't think I can hear that and not my blood pressure not go up about 20 beats. Like I'm ready to go.
The Duality, amazing. That video is bizarre as all get out. But I think
a weird video.
They're pretty much the only band I've ever seen that they have a guy that plays the baseball bat.
Clown. Yeah. No, the baseball bat and keg.
And the keg.
Yeah.
I don't even know where it came from.
Well, he's a percussionist, and I guess he takes it very, very seriously.
I was going to say that or he's on acid.
Well, that too. That too.
I mean, because I'm like, where do you even come up with that? But
the Clown's like, Sean Crahan is his name. Clown, he got into directing, and I think... he's got his hands in quite a few things, but yeah, I can't say I don't think there is another band playing the baseball bat and beer keg.
And I know Joey Jordison, he was the original drummer and was amazing.
Oh, he's real good.
Now he's not with him anymore because he went like deaf or partially deaf or something.
I didn't know that. Now I know he had another band too, and it was, man, I can't remember. They were good too, but he had another band that he was playing with. Yeah, he was he would always seatbelt himself into that drum stand and go out there like pretty much upside down and play. His solos. I mean, generally I'm not going to be too pumped up by a drum solo, but he was awesome. Of course, it helps when the band is also shooting fire everywhere, and you've got the DJ probably about to jump off the second floor of off the railing and into the crowd, probably going to hurt himself
like
bad.
Rage Against the Machine in the 90s.
The concert I missed when Slipknot came through in D.C., I actually was standing post at the front gate, so I got to watch all the drunk Marines come back in and tell me how much I missed. And he was in a wheelchair, I guess, with both his heels shattered. He had jumped off of whatever. He jumps off stuff for a living, probably not anymore, but he jumped unshattered both his heels, and I guess he was just out there in a wheelchair wheeling around and DJing, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But he's the one doing all the antics. I know he set himself on fire multiple times, and he's
insane.
just a freaking wild man.
It's sad that I forgot the guy's name because he was really awesome and talented. But they're the big guy, the bassist, I think he overdosed.
Paul or something. Paul.
Yeah, and because wasn't that what Snuff was written for, right?
I think. Well, there was a song for sure off their last album, I think, that was written for him. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wish I could remember his name. I think it's Paul something.
He was huge. He was a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big dude.
And he wore like the old Casey Jones from Ninja Turtles mask. Remember that?
Yeah, but and it had the really messed up the mouth bars.
Real thin. Mm-hmm. Instead of like the Jason Voorhees style mask.
They've had really cool masks throughout time. I think only one of them seems to never change his mask pretty much, and that's I think the lead guitarist Mick or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Corey Taylor's mask is always changing. It's always awesome. Yeah, I know that Slipknot for a while was not the cool band anymore, and then they kind of came back, and every time they release an album, people were like, "Oh yeah, I like them." Right. But it's pretty hard not to be entertained by like 9 dudes in jumpsuits headbanging with fire everywhere.
And with a guy with a ball bat.
Yeah, and a guy with a baseball bat.
And it sounds good together.
Yeah, okay. Somehow it all works. It just seems like it'd be chaos with 9 of them, but it is organized chaos. It's very...
And all from Iowa, if I remember right? Because then they basically started as like, I won't say garage band, but like Metallica was.
Yeah.
But like just basically getting together and playing and working their way up.
Yeah, it is very interesting that came out of Iowa. It's like, how did 9 guys find each other in Iowa that all want to do the same thing?
I can't remember what part of Iowa either. I don't think it was like Grand Rapids or a bigger place. I don't think either.
I want to say it was kind of small, but I'm not sure. It's interesting to see I don't like I said, I don't know a lot about music, but every once in a while I'll look up the bands I like, and I remember reading that David Draymond from Disturbed, he responded, I think, in a newspaper ad to come out and go to the garage and meet with them and start singing. He was a blues singer. Nothing even close to what Disturbed is. He went out there and just started making those crazy noises he makes and they were like, "Oh yeah,
like
no,
we're good."
And then he threw himself right into that metal culture. But it's interesting how that stuff starts. Pretty cool sometimes.
That Reason to Fight video literally brought me to tears watching. Did you see that video? Where it's talking about the addiction and the PTSD and all that. Mm-hmm. You know, Kyle, that was on the first episode. He actually shared. That's where I seen it first. I probably watched it 20 times.
Yeah,
I mean, it's freaking awesome.
They have some. When they first started, they were a little more brutal, and like they were just. It was like sometimes
down with the sickness,
being dark just for the sake of being dark. A lot of that, almost, I don't want to say satanic, but evil imagery and stuff like that. And then they started getting more into like they have one Inside the Fire, that song and music video has a warning at the beginning of the music video, and it's about suicide. That's a hard hitting one too. But they started getting a little more sometimes political, but they tackled hard hitting issues, and I know that their music to quite a few people, it means quite a bit to them.
And I remember it was actually 2007 when I went to the academy. They put out the album. It was the week I graduated because I remember buying it. It was the first album I bought when I got out of the academy. But it was they did a cover of Phil Collins' "Land of Confusion."
Oh yeah,
And it was pretty.
That was
awesome.
off 10,000 Fists.
10,000 Fists. Yeah, that was the album when I graduated the academy. I remember that was the first album I'd bought. So, and I remember I didn't even have an iPod then. Like I had this little stupid
I
clip-on
didn't.
thing.
Yeah,
Like it was like a ghetto iPod.
I wish I could remember what company it was, but the first MP3 player I had was not an iPod. It actually had like a scroll, like an actual scrolling wheel that you had to, like a physical switch you had to flip to go from music to music. And I mean, it worked fine, but not nearly as cool as all the iPods running around. Now, if you have an iPod, people are going to look at you like,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, what are you doing, dude?
I think we're pretty much spoiled now. I mean, when I can literally, like I just subscribe to Amazon Music. So, I mean, and literally just about any album that I can think of is on there. And every single week, every new album that comes out's on there. Mm-hmm. You know, I can just add it.
Yeah.
And stream it straight to, anywhere. My car, my office, everywhere.
We're,
I mean, it's just
we're
crazy.
definitely spoiled. I mean, you think about how we entertained ourselves, like me when I was a kid. I mean, I've always had video games. They've always been around since I've been alive. But, they've gotten better and better. And then the internet. When the internet first came around, I had dial-up. Useless. Absolutely useless. You aren't doing anything.
Oh, yeah,
if you were going to watch a video, you better hit play and just walk away for a while. Yeah. Go do something else and hope that video was what you were wanting.
And pray nobody calls or you get disconnected.
Oh, yeah. No, but now you fast forward to now, the entertainment that we have is so instant. If I'm sitting there watching a YouTube video, and let's be honest, I'm not watching anything life-changing. It's going to be something dumb. Mm-hmm. But if I'm trying to watch something hilarious or whatever, if I get the buffering wheel, like if it stops, if my video stops and I have to watch even 3 seconds of a loading screen, I want to go fire everybody who's involved with my internet because that's just not supposed to happen now.
Well, as much as you pay for freaking internet,
yeah,
it shouldn't have to. You know what I mean?
I should have a Comcast guy in my house.
Yeah, and lag.
Yeah,
no excuse for lag.
No. If I'm playing a video game. First of all, if I die, it's definitely the internet's fault, and that's what I'm going to blame it on. But if it really is the internet's fault, the level of rage. I mean, I get transported back to when I was like 12. Playing like Mortal Kombat or something. Like, my rage is not fitting for a 31-year-old adult male.
What kills me is we have all these advancements in technology, but like when I was a kid, I could be playing like Bulls versus Blazers 92 and get beat and get mad, and I could like kick the console like in the back of the TV and then just pull it back up and everything's fine.
Oh yeah.
I could accidentally like drop my controller on the ground and they're $60, and they'll just break.
Oh,
it's ridiculous.
I've broken several controllers, but I think it was the Xbox 360 controllers, the standard ones. I broke 2 of them the same way. I found they have a weak spot on them. I like to, usually when I get just overwhelmingly angry, feel like I've been wronged in life, I bring that controller over my head. Now keep in mind, I'm at this point, the last controller I broke, I was, again, a full-grown man, and I was in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And I was playing, I think the game I was playing at the time was Battlefield 3. I think it was 3. And I brought that controller over my head, brought it down, I slammed the opposite corner on the table. Well, this piece, like right next to your hand, flies off. The controller still worked for a while, but the vibration thing, and it's hitting my fingers when I'm playing. So I go buy another one. I have another rage moment a couple weeks later. Same thing. I hit it off the table. So it's just like every controller has some weak spot, and if you hit it off that table and go flying off, all because I don't have my life together and I'm yelling, at a video game. So that hasn't changed, and I don't intend on changing it. I mean, I think I just raged probably 3 days ago at a game. So
Call of Duty will do it. Like, I can play like other games, Mario Kart. I got Smash Brothers over there and all that. No big deal. Call of Duty, it's just something about it that just literally just brings the devil out.
Yeah, I know very well that I should not be playing games that are too hard anymore. And for some reason, one will get released, and I'll look at it, and it's like I don't learn. and I'll see it, Bloodborne or something like that. I'll see it, I'll be like, I can handle that. Mm. And then there I am in front of my wife on the couch, and I am raging. And she has to look up from her book and see what has happened to me in a video game that has caused me to freak out. I get more mad at these fictional scenarios in video games than I think I ever have been in real life.
Oh yeah, that's my out. Like that's like when I come home, if I'm not working a security job or something, I will typically come home. Depending on what happened that day, I'll take a shower. If it's one of the days where I'm lucky enough to be able to stay in the office and it's not like something bad, I'll come home and take the dress clothes off, throw some sweatpants on, and I'll game for an hour. It like clears my head, Then it's eat and go on my way.
I don't even want to know how many productive things I could have learned in my life in the time that I have spent playing video games, and I'm not gonna change it, but I'd probably know 10 languages if I just didn't play some of these games that I played.
Yeah, I could probably be Slash on the guitar if I dedicated
it. It's embarrassing when you have one of those games that you beat and it shows you your statistics at the end, and you're like, what? I think Metal Gear 5. I beat Metal Gear 5, and it was like 60 some hours that I spent, and I was like, no, dude, there's no way. I didn't spend days of my life playing this fictional game. Oh, but I did. That's what happened.
I literally, in 2008, I literally about got divorced over Call of Duty. I played so much. It was like, she was like, Will, you can't play that this much. Like, that's all you do. Because it was like right at the time of, your broadband internet and online gaming. Mm-hmm. Before, it was like, if I wanted to play with somebody, it was like, hey, dude, come over, we'll play WrestleMania 2000 on 64, or, or Mario Kart or something.
Couch games.
Yeah, you had to sit there. And then, all of a sudden, I have no idea why I'm bleeding, but Slate, he's like, dude, you got to get a PS3. And I'm like, why? He goes, man, it's got wireless internet, and you play online, this, that, and the other. And I went over to his house, and I literally played one match of Call of Duty. And I've been hooked ever
You were
since.
like, oh, I have to have it.
This is so long ago. It wasn't even Best Buy, it was Circuit City.
Man, forgot about that.
So I went there, got the PS3, and that's when they were just ridiculous price too. Like when right around when they first came out. I don't know why.
I think every system that's ever come out since like maybe PlayStation 2, aren't they always $400 or $500?
Well, the PS4, I want to say I spent. It may have been $400. There was a $100 difference between that and the Xbox. Mm-hmm. And I remember like Xbox had outsold PlayStation in like the last two systems or something. But then this generation, PlayStation had outsold Xbox, and I think what it was is one, PlayStation put it out like a month before, mm-hmm. and then also the price.
Yeah,
the $100 difference is like. And Xbox was pushing more. You had to buy the Kinect, and it was more of like a full entertainment type thing. Like you can run your cable box to it and all that, which is cool. I've got them both, but it's like I'm really for the video games.
Yeah. So, that's how I am. I mean, now I do appreciate. I mean, my PlayStation 4. I use obviously Netflix, all my streaming services on it, and that takes up some time too. That's a whole nother realm of what I could have learned if I didn't have streaming.
That's another thing spoiled.
Yeah.
We're spoiled.
Oh yeah, because it's a bummer though, because even though we are spoiled with that kind of entertainment, mm-hmm. I just watched. I mean, well, you saw it too. We just watched our last video rental store go out of business here in town.
It was sad.
And there was something pretty magical about like if you had, at least when I was growing up, mm-hmm. like Fridays or whatever, it's parents taking me to, at the time we went to Mr. Video, which out west, mm-hmm.
And next to Noble Romans, right?
Oh yeah, and hoping they would allow me to rent a game, mm-hmm. but definitely we're going to rent a movie. They're going to rent a movie I can't see,
right?
And I'm probably going to rent something dumb that kids watch. But I do specifically remember my dad not letting me watch RoboCop Well, I wanted to rent that, and he wouldn't let me.
That's communist.
Yeah, it is. I was pretty young though, and then I saw it when I was older, and I was like, "Oh, good call, Dad. That's pretty rough.
Yeah.
That's a rough movie."
I didn't watch the new one. I haven't, but I haven't watched it.
It's got some wild effects, but it's PG-13, so it's not as fun. But
there's no gore like in the first one.
No. The first one, if I remember right, I read that the first one had to go through multiple cuts because it was going to be rated NC-17 if they released it that way. Yeah, they had to cut a lot of gore out. So if you look at the amount of gore and violence in that movie right now and then wonder what was in it before, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does. That is one kind of sad thing. Is the same thing with the couch games. I know some of them exist now, but playing split screen, inviting friends over and playing split screen.
007.
A lot. Oh yeah, a lot of that's out of the question now. You know, most games don't do that. And it was. I mean, if you try and play it now, it's pretty hard because you're cutting the screen in half and everything. But yeah, GoldenEye. Games like Golden, that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun to have. Well, back then, up to 4 people come over, have a little party. At that time, probably drinking way too much Mountain Dew or whatever. Whatever drink, and just yelling at each other.
Domino's Pizza.
Accusing everybody of screen looking and cheating. So,
blue shells in Mario Kart ended so many friendships.
Oh my God! Yeah, you
Still
aren't
do.
kidding. You aren't kidding. Yeah, I can't tell you. Mario Kart's one of those games. It's even fun as an adult now. You're about to cross that finish line, and you know it's yours. You get freaking shelled from across the map.
And then then it's the rage.
Yeah, then it's the rage. That's when the 31-year-old man starts screaming at the TV. It's embarrassing. There's nobody around, but it is embarrassing.
Before the basement was done down here, I had the game upstairs. And she would work in the morning, and I worked third shift, so my nights off, that's all I did. And I really don't know how she ever got any sleep at all. Because one, I had a headset on. Two, it's like, you're going to be yelling because it's obviously the lag's fault.
It's not. It's never your fault. I actually just, on one of the new games I have, I was just playing it. My wife, I can't remember if she was going to bed that night or if she was waking up in the morning and I'd just gotten back from work. But I kind of forgot where I was. And I've got a pretty booming voice when I yell. And I got wronged. I got wronged by this game. And it's the kind of game that when there's a screw up, you're paying for it for a long time. And I yelled. I yelled pretty loud. How could this happen? Are you out of your mind? A bunch of things the game's not going to answer.
Oh, yeah.
And I, ended up pausing and just going back, so I'm going to bed. I walked in and my wife, it was in the morning. My wife's about to go to work and she's like, did the game do something to you? I was like, it did, but I'm done. Yeah, I don't need this in my life. Lay down, I'll play it the next day. But yeah, like I said, never been so mad, I don't think, at anything as I have been video games.
And the one thing I can't figure out is, as offended as so many people are nowadays, they would not survive 3 matches in a lobby of Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
Have they?
4.
Oh, 4? Yeah. Oh,
back on PS3 or X360. Dude, I got called things I don't even know what it means.
Oh, yeah.
It was so bad.
These kids, when I was playing, even your own teammates, I mean, if they're below the age of 15 and school is not in, you're playing, these kids are good. I mean, they're good. I mean, it's still, not your fault when you die, but these kids, the things they say to you and about your mother and about what they're doing to your mother and all that, I mean, it's impressive. And I've still not ever heard a parent come in and start beating their child.
I would probably be eating a bar of Dial soap if I would have spoke that way at that age.
Well, back in the day, I didn't curse because my parents would have destroyed me. But I raged, back in the day at video games, and I got my systems taken away. Like, my parents would walk in and unplug my system, just take the cord.
Yeah.
And I mean, anytime I got punished, I got my games taken away. Bad grades, cord's gone. Playing a game that I wasn't supposed to be playing, cord's gone. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if I'd have said the stuff that some of these kids are saying in these lobbies, I mean, you can tell there's no parents around.
They sound like they're 10.
Oh, yeah. There's nothing worse than a high-pitched, screeching voice calling you a racial slur.
Yeah. I'm like, kid, you have reach puberty. You just need to shut up and go to bed.
Yeah.
That's what it's like.
Yeah, it's aggravating.
Yeah.
And you just can't do anything about it. You know, if you knew where they were, you could probably go, convince their mom to go out on a date and really, become their stepdad and embarrass them.
Absolutely.
But you can't, the internet makes everybody a tough guy, including these 10-year-olds.
Dr. Disrespect, speaking of that, did you see the video where somebody like shot at his house?
It's one of the only videos I've watched all of. Yeah, he was sitting there streaming. And I've seen a lot of crazy stream videos just from, because I don't watch streams usually, but I will watch the videos of crazy moments when people are streaming. And somebody came by and took shots at his house with a real gun, like a drive-by.
Yeah.
And didn't he say they knocked out his window?
I think so.
I want to say he's been involved in 2 drive-bys.
I think you're right, yeah. And I want to say he probably lives in a very nice neighborhood because the other night when Call of Duty was dropping, Ninja signed like an exclusive deal with Mixer, which is basically Microsoft's Twitch.
Yeah.
And then there was another guy who's like huge streamer. He was big on Twitch, and now he's signed with Mixer. So like, the Doc is the #1 guy now, and he had some astronomical number of streamers, and the game hadn't even dropped yet. Like it was on a countdown, and he's of course he's got his mullet wig on, the glasses, the mustache, and the vest, the whole work, and he's got like a green screen, but it looks like a locker room or something, and he's like doing calisthenics and like just absolutely hilarious. But every so often a commercial would air, or he would advertise, G Fuel gaming drink, whatever, and I think it was my brother was telling me he was getting $3,000 to $5,000 per ad, and there was like an ad every so many minutes, and I'm like, dude, the game's not. I mean, you got this many people, and there's people donating to him at the same time. Because it pops up. And I'm sitting there thinking, the game's not even going on yet. Like, we're literally watching a timer. You know what I mean? And this guy's sitting there racking in $3,000 to $5,000, sitting here acting like an idiot.
Oh yeah, the streamers, the people who jumped on these trains early, not just streaming but YouTube, all this stuff. Look at PewDiePie.
Oh my!
And now he's not #1 anymore. But PewDiePie, and I think he's kind of funny. I don't watch all his videos. Every once in a while, me and my wife will, because he actually does some other travel blogs and stuff too. But that guy is he's an idiot. He is an idiot. There's nothing about him that makes him really like an entrepreneur, something that you would think deserves the amount of money he gets.
Right.
He jumped on the bandwagon early. He got a fan base. He's been around for so long, his fan base, which were teenagers, have grown up. And now more teenagers are still jumping on the bandwagon. That guy makes so much money. Yeah. And he literally does about the same thing I would do if you put a camera on me. Be a grown man and scream at a TV. But he,
Dr. Disrespect does the same thing.
Yeah, granted him and Dr. Disrespect, probably PewDiePie a little more as far as editing, but these streamers, that's what they do. And some of them aren't even good. They're it's just their personality.
Yeah,
that reminds me, how does Dr. Disrespect play a fast Twitch game like that with tinted sunglasses?
Because he's a legend.
I guess. Dude, I remember putting on a gas mask in the Marine Corps. I put on a gas mask and I had my armor on. We all did in my room, and we were playing, I think, Battlefield 3 when it first come out, or when we got back from deployment. I lasted about 10 minutes with a gas mask on. I was like, I don't need this in my life. And those aren't even tinted. Like, that's too distracted. I need to be limber when I'm going to yell at the TV.
I'm on the Kurt team, and I put that on for like 2 minutes, and I'm like, I'm numb. I'll just die from gas because I don't want to wear it.
No, I'd rather breathe it in.
Yeah.
No,
it's horrible.
Yeah, it's amazing that these streamers, how much they make. When you actually look it up. And not just that, you see their lifestyles. They're traveling all over the place. And they really are just playing a video game. In a lot of cases, they aren't even good. They're just a regular. Which Dr. Disrespect, he's pretty good.
Yeah. And he's funny, too.
Yeah, he's funny. He's got a good persona.
I mean, think about Joe Rogan, man. In their podcast, I looked it up. Just out of curiosity. $25 to $50 million a year. And he literally sits across the table and talks to people.
Well,
just random people.
And that's probably just what comes from that. You
got the UFC stuff too.
Yeah, he's done a lot. He's a very stand-up. Yeah, he's a very accomplished guy. I personally, I know some people don't, but I personally think his stand-up's pretty funny. His podcast, when he has the right guest on, is probably my favorite podcast. It's very, very funny. He really is. It's like that meme, Oprah for men. Yeah. And that's what he is. And he really is. He's Oprah for men. I'd be lying if I said, I didn't occasionally do things because of Joe Rogan. Like, he'll have somebody on, he'll be like, oh, that's cool. I do that now. And it's just jumping on a bandwagon. But he also, the UFC, the commentating. He's an accomplished martial artist himself. He's got the potheads with him. He's big into that.
DMT, marijuana.
Yeah, pretty much. He is a very, very successful guy and has his hands in so much. But his podcast alone I was about to say float him. Nothing floats Joe Rogan. He is rich, and he will forever be rich. And
I guess like the biggest reason why I like Joe Rogan's podcast is the fact of most podcasts have a theme. They're like right-wing news, left-wing news, or they're music related, video games related, electronics related, whatever, crime related, whatever. You might get his on here. Like earlier, I listened to an old episode from like 2017. He was interviewing the Miscavige guy that leads the Scientology, his dad, because he's been shunned or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were like literally following him around. And he was telling the story about it and stuff. And Joe Rogan said that he's done all these podcasts, like 2 a day for however long, and they're the only like organization or person or whatever that's actually sent him a letter. Mm-hmm. I thought it was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But he had like, was it Leah Rahimi or whatever her name is? Mm-hmm. And then he had the guy on there and stuff.
His guests, I know his life has been affected several times by the types of guests he has on. He has several conspiracy theorists
come Alex
on.
Jones was
when he had Alex Jones on, he had to contend with some things. I personally can look at Alex Jones and think that entertains me.
Yeah.
I don't have to be affected by him, but he affects people. Like, there are a lot of people upset about old Alex.
The funniest things, Joe Rogan going, Alex, you're going off.
Alex, you're ranting.
Yeah, you're ranting.
You're ranting.
You're going to tangent.
Well, Joe Rogan feeds him whiskey. He comes on his podcast and he feeds him whiskey. I mean, if you have ever listened, it's been a couple years, but he used to, before they deplatformed him, you could listen to Alex Jones on iTunes or whatever podcast app, and that's sober Alex, and it's crazy. I mean, yeah, sure, he'll occasionally say something true every once in a while. He talks for 3 hours a day. He's got to say some true stuff, and then you put him on Joe Rogan and you're giving him whiskey. And you have him next to Eddie Bravo.
Yeah.
Eddie Bravo thinks the Earth is flat.
Yeah, and he was instigating him too, which was hilarious.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's two people that probably don't need to be in the same room because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Joe Rogan's dealt with some. But then at the same time, he'll have Alex Jones and Eddie Bravo on and talk about flat Earth and yell at each other.
Yeah.
Then he'll have a presidential candidate on.
Yeah,
he's had
Tulsi on your sweatshirt. Yeah, she was on there.
He's had Tulsi twice. He's had Yang once. He's had Bernie.
Bernie was on there.
Yeah, Bernie for like an hour.
Ted Nugent was on there.
He's had Ted Nugent. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like, because there's no like set thing. Like you go. I mean, how total opposite are Bernie Sanders and Ted Nugent?
Oh,
dude, that's like
they aren't even in the same world.
Yeah, and he was cool with both of them. Mm-hmm. He didn't argue with either one of them. He asked them like what their stance was. That's why I like it.
I know a lot of people get upset with Joe Rogan because they think his questions are not, maybe not what they wanted. Well, he's not a news reporter, and honestly, even
he's not a political analyst.
Even reporters don't do their job half the time. But Joe Rogan, he has all these people on, and people were so mad that he had Alex Jones on, and they said, "Well, you're giving him a platform." Well, first of all, they're friends. And he's Joe Rogan, and he'll do what he wants. Mm-hmm. And second, just because you disagree with somebody doesn't mean you can't talk. It doesn't make any sense like this yelling back and forth at each other about just because it's this us versus them thing. There's like no middle anymore.
Which is 90% of the news anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what.
But if you go out, I can't remember who said it. whoever said this, it's like if you look around, like it seems crazy when you're on the internet. It seems like everyone hates each other and things are going downhill. But if you stop and look around and like talk to people face to face, it's fine. Yeah. You know, people aren't crazy. Most of them, they're willing to listen. But yeah, I think it's definitely the way things in the news, they perpetuate it. They only want to show you the worst. They only want people to be mad at each other. And it's upsetting because you know that's not how it is. Yeah. I mean, I guess I have some right wing beliefs. I consider myself fairly center, but I also have some left wing things. My wife is pretty left, and me and her have talked multiple times about things that we completely disagree with. We're still fine. Yeah. Friends. We like talking to each other. I mean, yeah, there's been some topics where it started to get heated, and it's like, all right, let's take a step back. Right. But it's not that hard to listen to each other. And that's the one thing I love about podcasts. And, you know, Joe Rogan was the first one I started listening to, but most podcasts are at least an hour long. And in Joe Rogan's case, 3, or if it's the Alex Jones one, 4 hours long. Yeah. You can get a lot of information and questions and answers in that time. That long form podcast, I think, is good for. I would encourage anybody who just gets their information from TV, the news, whether you like CNN or Fox or ABC when they're making stuff up or whatever.
Fake news.
Yeah, fake news. I would encourage anybody to just go to the news section of your podcast app and look around, because even if you're looking for biased news, you're like, I only want to hear stuff that makes me right. All right, well, go there and find that. You're probably still going to get better information out of something that's an hour long than you are just a bunch of people cramming as much horrible stuff into 30 seconds as they can.
Yep. I always knew podcasts were there, and like when we cut cable, we pretty much went bare bones for quite a while, and that's when I started listening. And you know, I obviously have had an iPhone for years, but I never really liked the podcast app. I thought it was confusing to use, and I ended up downloading Pocket Cast, and I absolutely love it. It is like the most easiest way to find any podcast you can think of, and it organizes it. Like, there's just little squares, and you'll see the picture, and you can just scroll up and click it, and it'll have every podcast they've done. You know.
Yeah.
You can download it or stream it depending on what you want to do.
Podcasts have changed things for me. I guess if I had a different job, I probably wouldn't have as much time to listen to them. I went from listening to music most of the time to now I've got a steady stream. I've got everything from just some entertainment ones that are just comedy to I actually do have a horror podcast that's just like supposedly, you know, true stories that have happened, creepy. But, you know, I got Joe Rogan. I've got some comedians. I've got at least 2 news one, and I mean you're getting information that is you're not hearing on TV because it's not what they want you to hear.
Right.
You know, if you're somebody who watches Fox News, then you've probably at some point, if you were a diehard fan, at some point you've probably referred to CNN as liars and this and that, and vice versa. Yeah. If you listen to CNN or whatever, well, Fox News, they're nothing but a bunch of liars. Just Google it. Just look up any big news group, and just look up lies, and just look at you can pick apart just about every anchor, everybody that we trust to tell us things, and you will find some heinous lie.
Yeah, well, and it's like, it doesn't matter if it's CNN, Fox, I mean, any of them. I swear, MSNBC doesn't matter. 90% of it is them sitting on there arguing back and forth.
Oh yeah, you get like 5 people. You ever see? I'm sure you've seen those panel interviews where they have.
Yeah, it's
I think one time I saw, if I remember right, I counted 3, 6, 9, like 9 people, other than the host. Yeah. And it's like a 5-minute segment, and at any given time, I mean, for the most part, it was at least 6 of them yelling at each other. It's like, what do you expect me to learn from this? Like, I get that they're all angry, but I can't even pick out a word. They're all yelling at each other. And it's because it's the same thing with the debates. You know, the debates have rules, except those rules seem to be suggestions. Yeah. You know, sometimes, obviously Trump, he's a big fan of, you know, wrong. You know, he's a big fan of interrupting.
Lying Ted.
Lying. Lies, all lies. Yeah, and
Lying Ted Cruz.
But they all do it. I mean, everybody. It's like, hey, they said this person has a minute to talk. You're gonna get your time. Well, I say you're gonna get your time. No, you're not. Not if you're not if you're Yang and you're Yang. I mean, or do you remember? I don't know if you were watching. I think it was, what was it, 1 or 2 elections? God, I can't remember. When Ron Paul was giving it his last shot, and old Ron couldn't get any time to talk for anything. You know. And I even saw a video on YouTube of them comparing who the top candidates were, and they said, you know, this person's number 1, this person's number 2, and this one's number 4. And Ron Paul was 3, but they don't want Ron Paul doing well, so they skipped over him and went straight to 4. When was the last time you saw somebody get a medal for 4th place?
Yeah,
like, you care about the top 3.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they'll do what they want, and they'll continue to do what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, man, I won't keep you. I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, it's been fun. Been interesting to be on the other side, not just be listening to podcasts.
I'm definitely, trying to keep it going. I'm still learning a lot of the editing and stuff. Mm-hmm. But after this podcast, I should actually have it uploaded to like all the major podcasting networks, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, you name it, Google, whatever they have. So, and then they'll also be on YouTube as well. I initially made a YouTube channel specifically for Basement Banter, but for whatever reason, it doesn't want me, or it won't let me upload it. So now it's I'm just loading it up to my regular, my personal YouTube channel. So
YouTube's got a lot of rules to follow and algorithms in place that people can't figure it out.
And it may be something too where somebody already had the channel or the name or something. You know what I mean? And it's not letting me. I don't know, but I definitely appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for having me on.
Are you still third shifting or?
Yep. Yeah, I'll be third shift for the foreseeable future.
Till Justin comes back. Fix yourself, Justin.